is sponsored by Audible. At Audible, you can find the largest selection of audiobooks, podcasts, and other spoken word entertainment. They have it all. They have bestsellers, new releases, memoirs, and thousands of podcasts. As an Audible member, you get 1 free credit every month to choose a title from their premium collection, which you then get to keep forever in your Audible library. Audible also just launched their newest plan, Audible Plus, which gives you access to their entire Plus catalog, which has thousands of audiobooks, ad-free versions of your favorite shows, tons of podcasts, and other original entertainment. They even have sleep tracks for better rest, which includes meditation and, you guessed it, ASMR. All this is included in your Plus membership, which you can use or listen at any time. You can also download it to use it offline. Audible is super easy to use, and the app is free to download. It even has a feature when you finish listening on one device, it'll continue on the other device. So say you were listening to a book in your car. If you got out when you got home and wanted to continue listening on your laptop, it would pick up right where you left off. I'm currently listening to The Queen's Gambit on Audible, and I had heard about this book actually through the Netflix miniseries, so I decided to give the book a chance, and it is as every bit good as the TV show, and it is just different enough that it is still holding my attention. If you're interested in listening to The Queen's Gambit or any other of their many titles, you can go to audible.com/lavender or text lavender to 500 to start your 30-day free trial. I really love Audible because I love reading, but I don't always have time to sit down with a book. So I use it when I'm driving or doing errands or taking a walk, getting my exercise in. So it really has been a lifesaver for me. So once again, if you want to support me and check out Audible, go to my link at audible.com/lavender. Okay, let's get on to this book-themed ASMR video. Hello. I'm Sarah Lavender, and this is my ASMR channel. So today I thought we would do another book video, though as I was thinking about what books to talk about and what books I've read recently, I realized that a lot of the books I've been reading have been on my phone on this app called Libby, which basically connects to your home library and you rent books through your library, digital copies. But digital books aren't that good for ASMR. But what I also have is about 6 or 7 books from a recent shopping trip I went on, book shopping trip. So I thought I would do a little bit of conversation about some of my favorite reads lately, but also some books that I've recently bought that I'm really excited about. So like a book haul type video. I was wondering if that was even a thing, so I went to BookTube on YouTube, and I don't really watch too many BookTuber videos, even though I probably should. I get a lot of my recommendations from a subreddit person's, because I would really have to trust that person and their taste in books for me to watch them, but I really should get into them because I feel like that's right up my alley. Are there any ASMR booktubers that you guys watch, or is it kind of a rare combo? I'm not sure. More for me to look into. But anyways, I want to talk about some of the books I've been reading here on my little phone. So let me pull up the Libby app. This is not sponsored by Libby, by the way. My little sister showed me this app, and it's really useful. Okay, so I'm pulling it up here. So, here we go. Okay, so I have 3 books to talk about that are my most recent read books that I really enjoyed, all of them. The first is this book called All Systems Red. And I will still try to make this ASMR-y, and I promise I have real books. But if you're using this video to find a recommendation, I do want to talk about books that I've already read. So, All Systems Red is a sci-fi novel. I don't read too much sci-fi. I prefer fantasy, but I still do enjoy a good sci-fi book, especially if it has kind of fantastical elements to it, which most do. Star Wars is essentially a fantasy with robots, you know, it's not very science fiction-y, even though it's a staple. Anyways, All Systems Red was written by Martha Wells, and it's part of the Murderbot Diaries. My little brother recommended me this book, and it's more of a novelette, so it's really short, and it's really funny. If you liked The Martian, I think you would really like All Systems Red. It's about a murderous robot who is overcome by apathy in its duty to murder. That's hard to describe. Basically, its whole purpose is to be a machine of war, but instead it hacks its own system just to be lazy all day. It's really funny, but it's very serious. It looks at war and what makes a human, sort of like iRobot. And he ends up, spoiler alert, you kind of learn this in the first chapter actually, but you learn that it ends up caring for the humans it's assigned to work with, even though its purpose is to be a murder bot. So yeah, I highly recommend it. It's such a quick read, and it was really funny, and it really makes you think, if we continue to develop artificial life, the morals that are going to come into play on what makes a human. Do we have the right to create these machines of war? It's interesting. And it talks a little about exploitation of natural resources, and most of the characters are Indian, which I thought was a really interesting touch. The cultural side of it doesn't come into play so much. It's set very far into the future, but they all have Indian names, and I'm assuming they're all Indian. So yeah, I highly recommend it. It's a short sci-fi book with a lot of action packed into it, written by a woman, so definitely add that to your list. So next on my little Libby app, let's see, I want to show you the covers so you can decide, because covers are very important. So another recent one I read was Conversations with Friends, and it is a novel by Sally Rooney. Sally Rooney wrote Normal People, which is now a popular TV show, and I read it a while ago. I haven't seen the TV show yet. It's a romance novel, a modern romance. I really like her writing. it's one of those books where you can tell she puts a lot of herself into the character that she's writing. Both novels feature a very precocious young lady who gets involved in complicated romantic tangles, but I hesitate to use the word highbrow, but it's very, very well written, and you can tell the author, Sally Rooney, is very smart. She's Irish, so both Conversations with Friends and Normal People take place in Ireland. What else can I say about this book? I liked it a little less than Normal People, but I read Normal People a long time ago, so I don't want to put it in a video about my recent faves, but I still really liked Conversations with Friends. It tackles sexuality and polygamy a little bit. It's a very modern romance novel, so if you're looking for a book where it's like man, woman, non-complicated relationship, this is not it. It has, the main character is bisexual, she has like a thing with her friend, and she has a thing with this older man, so it's very complicated, but I could almost say that no one in the book is that good of a person either, so it's kind of a morally gray situation, but I'm still very drawn to it because the writing is really good. What else can I say? I'm sure this one will also become a TV show eventually because Normal People was very popular. So if you want to read a book before it becomes a TV show, that's just my prediction. I actually have no idea if that's going to happen. So yeah, if you liked Normal People, if you've read that, this was her first novel, and I suggest you check it out. It sucks not having a physical copy. It's about this thick, so it's also not that thick of a read. I think I finished it in 4 or 5 hours. And I'm not going to talk about this book too much, but there is another novel I read recently, like a couple months back, called My Year of Rest and Relaxation, and it had those same vibes. So if you've read that book, this one is also similar. I like that book, A Year of Rest and Relaxation, but it was very strange. It was, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but maybe I'll talk about it in a future book video. Okay. And the last little phone book I'm going to talk about before moving on to my real books over here is Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. So this is a book about a young boy, he's about 11 or 12, who, the book never explicitly mentions this, but I'm pretty sure he has Asperger's. He has hyperfixations and trouble socializing. But like I said, he doesn't outright say that in this book. But it's about a young boy who's very, very, very smart also, and he loses his father in 9/11. So his dad dies in 9/11, and the kid used to solve riddles and like quests with his dad, and he finds one surreal in some moments. This is a thought I had, that the kid's way of seeing the world is seen in his grandparents and his dad, so you kind of really have this complete family picture, and their inner voice is so good, and the author really captured how a kid thinks and talks, and it's just, you really feel part of this family. I'm normally very critical of books that take the point of view of a child because the author just makes them a miniature adult. And I'm like, I used to be a nanny in my past, and I'm like, I'll read these books and be like, kids don't talk like that, kids don't make decisions like that, it's just not realistic. But this book reminds me so much of this 11-year-old I used to nanny. The things he says to people, I'm like, this sounds exactly like that kid. So that was extremely loud and incredibly close. I think it was my favorite of these 3 books that I've read recently because it was just so moving, and I'm a sucker for books that are very moving. And once again, I really liked how he wrote the voice of the kid. So, let's move on to real physical books. Most of these are books that I've bought within the past week when I went on a little trip to my local bookstore. I'm currently living in Mexico City, so finding English books has officially become a little bit more of a challenge. And I really, really like supporting local bookstores or buying used books. It makes it a little more guilt-free, I guess. But the first book Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami. So the author is Japanese, and I believe it was translated from Japanese. I really like reading translated books, though it makes me sad because I know I'm missing a layer of nuance that comes with reading it in the original language. Kafka on the Shore. So let me read you the back and then I'll tell you what I know about this book and why I'm really excited to read it. Kafka on the Shore displays one of the world's great storytellers at the peak of his powers. Here we meet a teenage boy, Kafka Tamura, who is on the run, and Nakata, an aging simpleton, who is drawn to Kafka for reasons that he cannot fathom. As their paths converge, acclaimed author Haruki Murakami enfolds readers in a world where cats talk, fish fall from the sky, and spirits slip out of their bodies to make love or to commit murder in what is truly a remarkable journey. So this is an extremely popular book, and it's very surreal. It's kind of a staple for surreal fiction. How I learned about this book was I've heard about it, but a week ago I googled a book where a cat talks, and I was looking that up because I had this idea for my own story to write, and I will sometimes Google ideas I have to see if they've been done before, because we tend to draw a lot from our subconscious, and it's like a worst nightmare of mine to write a book, write a story that I had like subconsciously copied. But so I googled cat talking and this book came up because there are talking cats in it. So like I said, it's pretty surreal. I know there's a lot of time weirdness where events are misplaced and the timeline of the story is kind of weird, and I've read books like that before, and honestly I'm a little bit sensitive to that. Like, I don't like feeling confused in a book. I don't like not understanding what's going on, but that's a really popular writing style, to slowly unveil what's going on, but it frustrates me for some reason. So I'm curious how much I'm gonna like this book. I really like Japanese media and Japanese humor and stuff like that, so I think I'm going to enjoy it. I've heard it's sort of similar, to the anime movie Your Name, which is really popular, and I just recently watched it, and it's really good. I think it's on Netflix in the US right now. But it also has elements of a strange timeline, if that makes sense, where events come before or after. It's not in chronological order. And it's just overall a very strange experience. It probably doesn't sound like I'm that excited to read it, but I really am. It's really a famous book, and he has many other books that he's written, so if I enjoy this book, I'm definitely checking out his other ones. Let's see. I'm honestly excited for the insight into what daily life is like in Japan. I don't watch a lot of vlogs, but I do watch ones where the person is explaining the culture that they live in, and I've watched one of an American expat in a small Japanese town, and she's one of my favorites. And I think it's so interesting, just like the daily life differences. That is not the point of this book, but still, it's why I enjoy cultural fiction so much. Okay, let's see what I have next. So, next I have The Once and Future King. So this is a retelling of the King Arthur story by T.H. White. It may be the most famous retelling, besides maybe the Disney Channel version. I think the Disney Channel version might even be based on this book, because the first chapter, the first section, is titled Can you see that? The Sword and the Stone. So it's the story of King Arthur as a child and the pulling of the sword from the stone. I am interested in Arthurian legend. I wouldn't say I'm overly interested. I do appreciate that it's kind of the cornerstone of a lot of fantasy. I watched Merlin in high school, which is a BBC TV show that I loved a lot. So I feel like I'm going to appreciate this book a lot. I don't know how historically accurate it is, but it's very, very famous, and I love the title. future in which he would ally himself with the greatest knights, love a legendary queen, and unite a country dedicated to chivalrous values. A future that would see him crowned and known for all time as Arthur, King of the Britons. During Arthur's reign, the kingdom of Camelot was founded to cast enlightenment on the Dark Ages. While the Knights of the Round Table embarked on many a noble quest, but Merlin foresaw the treachery that awaited his liege, the forbidden love between Queen Guinevere and Lancelot, the wicked plots of Arthur's half-sister Morgause, and the hatred she fostered in Mordred that would bring an end to the king's dreams for Britons and to the king himself. So one thing I'm already regretting about this book is that I bought it so small, and it's very thick. I don't normally like tiny little books like this because they don't lie flat, and it's very much a struggle to lay them flat and to read them, but I think we'll be okay. It reminds me a bit of books you would have to read for English class in high school. This review says, I have laughed at White's great Arthurian novel and cried over it and loved it all my life. By Ursula K. Le Guin. I read her book. Oh, she's an author also, and I just read her book about 2 months ago. Her famous Earth-Sea trilogy. Is it a trilogy? Earth-Sea series. And the first one is called A Wizard of Earthsea, and it's kind of the pinnacle. That's the wrong word also. It's very famous for being one of the first young adult fantasy novels. I think it was written in the 60s or so. I read it and I enjoyed it, and I kind of wish I was a teenager again because I felt like I would have appreciated it a bit more. But that's besides the point. She is very famous, so I'm excited to hear that she liked this book. I'm going to read a small part of it, okay? The boys' only amusement was the ant nests, the one between glass plates which had been brought when he first came from Merlin's cottage in the forest. Can't you, he howled miserably under the door, turn me into something while I'm locked up like this? I can't get spells through the keyhole. Through the what? The keyhole. Oh. The relationship between Arthur and Merlin is going to be very interesting in this book. In that BBC show I mentioned Merlin, they're both the same age, but this traditional novel, I'm pretty sure Merlin is much older. So yes, very excited to check this one out. The next is the book that I'm currently reading. What a pretty cover. But it's called The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Folet. This is a big book. It was recommended to me by my best friend, who also recommended me East of Eden, so I trust her opinion a lot. So I'm only about this far into it or so, maybe here, and I fully expected this to be a fantasy novel. I don't know why, but it's not. But it does take place in 12th century England, which is when a lot of fantasy takes place. Essentially, it's the Dark Ages or medieval England. researching this time period in England, I recently learned that he's actually not more famous, but prior to this, he wrote either mystery or thriller novels. And so I think his ability to research, which I'm sure you have to do for like mystery and thriller novels to get all the clues together, but he's very good at research, and it shows in this book. Let's see. It tells the story of a monk and a architect and a princess. And here we go. The struggle between good and evil that will turn church against state and brother against brother. A spellbinding epic tale of ambition, anarchy, and absolute power set against the sprawling medieval canvas of 12th century England. This is Ken Follett's historical masterpiece. I had the strangest conversation with an older lady like a year or two ago where we were talking about books, and she said this was her favorite book of all time, and she was a very smart lady. So along with her and my friend, I have a feeling that this book is going to end up on my greatest of all time list, but we will see. Okay, it is also another very famous book. I feel like a lot of the books I have with me this time are well known. I haven't found very many hidden gems. I'm not so good at finding those. I am more hesitant to try books out that don't have good reviews or many reviews, because I don't know why. I read a lot of like online web stories though, which are essentially that, but when it comes to hardback books, I really try to buy ones that have many good things said about them. Like this book right here. Breakfast of Champions by Vonnegut. Another very famous book. This one is much thinner, and I was flipping through it, and it has drawings in it, which I wish more adult books had drawings in it. If I ever write a book, which is on my bucket list, I think I'm going to include drawings. I don't think adults are too old for drawings. Like, I don't think it's juvenile. I think it makes a story better. As you can see, there are a lot of drawings. I don't know if they're by Vonnegut himself, but I think that they are. So I have read one other of his books, only one actually, and that's Cat's Cradle, which I liked a lot, so I'm excited for this one. All of his books are very much humorous critiques of society. There's one that's very famous for being a war critique, Slaughterhouse 5, which if I like this one, I'm going to buy that one next. He has black humor, a satiric voice, and incomparable imagination. So this book is about another writer, and I think it's interesting because his imagination, Kurt Vonnegut's imagination, is so crazy. He's writing a book about somebody who writes books, so he comes up with so many plot ideas and characters, so I'm really curious cute covers. I also bought Little Women by them. But this book is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. And this book has been on my to-read list for forever. So I decided to buy the cute version of it. I read Little Women. I was not the biggest fan of it. I want to watch the movie. I haven't seen the movie once again. But the book was just too unrelatable for me. I feel like it was very preachy and it was very much a moral compass for the viewer or the reader who is supposed to be a younger woman. And I just found the preachiness of it, and I feel like it is very good comfort food for someone who read it when they were younger, but reading it as an adult, I was very neutral about it. So I really hope this isn't the case with this one. I feel like I'm going to appreciate this character a bit more than the ones in Little Women. She is a fiery, charismatic little orphan who's trying to find a home. Isn't that the cutest packaging or binding? So this collection has Anne of Green Gables, Heidi, A Little Princess, and Little Women. Let's see. I don't really know much more about this besides she is an orphan. She gets sent to a home and she is trying to stay at this home and make it her forever home. That's what you use for dogs, isn't it? That's not the right word. She's trying to get permanently adopted by this family. I do know it has a lot of really cute quotes. I might make another quote video someday, and I will probably add a quote from this. She's very sweet, and I think she's like naive, and just sounds like a really sweet character. Lastly, I have Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. I was reading a little bit about this book. I got it at Half Price Books a little while ago, and I haven't read it yet, so I'm adding it to my haul pile. But I think it is the first sci-fi. Yes, you heard that correct. I know the cover doesn't look very sci-fi, but it's the first sci-fi novel by a black woman. And the story sounds so interesting. Let me read you the synopsis. I can't remember what the name is for the little blurb on the back. I don't know if synopsis is the right word. But anyways. Dana, a modern black woman, is celebrating her 26th birthday with her new husband when she is snatched abruptly from her home in California and transported sci-fi, but this seems like a really good, relatively quick, jam-packed read. I love books that play with time, similar to Kafka on the Shore, but more in a sci-fi way, just darting in between time and time loop scenarios and things like that. They're so interesting to me. I think it was published, let's see, I think it was the 60s. Here we go, 1979. I was off. You can tell a book is good when it has reader's guides in the back and book club discussion questions. So I'm going to use this one in between the thicker books. Like I've said before in my other book videos, I like to space out in between really thick, hard to read novels with something more consumable and jam-packed. I think it keeps the cycle moving, you know. So that is all for today. I'm super excited to go through these books. And as always, if you have recommendations, please comment below. I think someday I'm going to make a book video called My Favorite Books That My Viewers Have Recommended. Okay guys,